Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. I'm really excited to be back again here at Fantasy Labs doing a lineup review of the Puerto Rico Open. Exciting times in golf. Really fun week with the Puerto Rico Open, which I liked a lot, in addition to the Dell match play. And of course, we're at the end of April here, which means the Masters is so close. One more week of golf, the Shell Houston Open before the Masters, but I am excited. It's a great time of the year for sports with basketball winding down and getting into the end of the regular season, into the postseason. We have the Masters, obviously, opening day. So it's a great time for sports, great time for DFS. Taking a look here at the Thunderdome, which was a 12-man this week. Didn't have a good cash game team or a good Thunderdome team here, but actually ended up with a good weekend overall. Taking a look at my team specifically, you see here I have two missed cuts, Nick Taylor and Robert Garrigus, who are both, I was the only one on both of those guys in this specific tournament. Garrigus ended up being pretty leveraged overall. Don't feel bad about the process in either of those guys. Really went after bombers this week, as you can see throughout the majority of my lineup here. And I think I did a pretty good job with my team overall. Not trying to be results oriented. Both guys just barely missed the cut, and the rest of the lineup was relatively chalky. Harold Varner was the clear chalk at the cheap price. List I was in love with as a top-end play, and really thought Scott Brown, I was surprised how owned he was in this tournament, but liked him in Spawn a lot as well. The lineup I was on earlier was Jet Black X's lineup. Great weekend, just crushed across the industry. Won the Thunderdome here with a miscut. You can see 508 points, took it down. DeChambeau, Hagee, List, John Peterson, Peter, and Harold Varner. And I'm not sure on the pronunciation of the last name here, but should know it. Great golfer in Europe and certainly someone to pay attention to. So scrolling over to the dog leg, I actually did really well in the dog leg, had a great ROI here. Finished 5th and 6th, which is really nice on a $33 entry. Got 8.5 back, so just those two scores alone provided well over 100% ROI, and it felt good about the tournament. I should say those two scores set me up to be it's basically at 100% ROI. So if you can do that, you're guaranteed to have a great week. And the rest of my teams did pretty well. I had a lot of teams cash, and really enjoying putting in 150 teams into the dog leg each week. So I'll be doing that going forward. I didn't get to register everything else. Still looking for a way. I want to track cash lines of all the different tournaments, and I was doing that originally in a Google Doc. There might be a way that we'll get it up on Fantasy Labs because I didn't register for everything, so I do not have those contests to look at. But yeah, this is a really interesting tournament overall. It was a little smaller than normal weeks just because of the field and all the best players playing in the match play, but felt good about my process. You can see here my 5th place team had a lot of core guys that were chalky. I also had Martin Flores. The other guy that I used that was pretty leveraged was Boo Weekly, and he had a really nice round with an eagle, obviously in a bogey-free round, some nice birdie scoring. A couple guys over here that you saw in a lot of other lineups that I thought were pretty chalky. Danny Lee is another guy who ended up being chalky that I had some of my core here, and you can just see a lot of the same players just rotated in and out. So I felt good about my process, and it was a really interesting week because you had, like I said, a field that wasn't as strong. And a lot of the players were coming over from Asian tours and European tours, which I think gives Fantasy Labs a big leg up since we're going off adjusted round data versus ShotLink data. And ShotLink data definitely is great, but the holes that it has are basically the European tour and these Asian tours. So being able to leverage a good data set for this tournament, I thought created a nice edge. Matt 6522 with 625.5 points, just the nut lineup here. DA points at 0.5%, 20 under and won the tournament. We Kim at tie for 5th at 17 under, 1.3% owned, and then Chris Stroud shooting 16 under, which was ridiculous at 1.8% as well. So really, really good tournament team here. 3 really leveraged contrarian guys and just lapped the field. Beep I'm a Jeep took 2nd, continuing his heater. Congrats again to Beep I'm a Jeep for taking home the NHL live final at DraftKings in Miami. Continues with a 2nd place here. Really nice team. Really chalky guys that we've all talked about with Wee Kim at 1.3%. So great team, Beep I'm a Jeep. And of course, the Sports Geek had a great week as well. Bryson DeChambeau, David Hearn, Andrew Johnston, Beef, John Peterson, JT Poston, and Peter again. So great team from the Sports Geek. Always like to see him have success. He's a big endorser of Fantasy Labs, and obviously his site, the Sports Geek, is awesome too. So congrats to him, and really happy to see some names I know up at the top of this leaderboard. In terms of the percentage of guys that I used, I wanted to show you guys my process in terms of how many guys I'm using and how owned they are. This is a pretty normal week. I made 149 lineups and also had my cash game team. And I make sure that that's not duplicated in tournaments. But I had Luke List as my number one guy just because he had so much equity. I wasn't sure how chalky he would be exactly, but I knew he'd be chalk and I didn't care. Ryan Brem at 54%, Varner at 51%. You can see some other guys, Garrigus, Flores, who are contrarian at 42%. Dillette, DeChambeau, Boo Weekly, another contrarian pick in the 30s, and a pretty small band of players with ownership kind of really in on a core. That's pretty much my process every week. Sometimes I'll go a little higher than 62% on a player if I think they'll be really leveraged in a great tournament play. Other times I'll only go up to 50% because some of the guys I like so much are such chalk. And I generally try not to overload my top-end guys to be the most heavy chalk, but I was just so in love with List this week that I thought it made sense. So I made all the teams here on Fantasy Labs. It worked great, and I'm excited to keep doing that in the future here in golf. Also wanted to take a look here at the PGA Monster on FanDuel. I played one team and had a really nice team. It's interesting. I'm still not a huge fan of the golf product at this point in time. I'm still trying to figure out if there's any way they can really salvage kind of how the ownership works out. You can see here, loaded up with some really chalky guys. I did get some low-owned guys in the first couple of rounds, but everyone's loading up on these cheap guys, because in the first two rounds, because that's where the most equity is if you can save for the studs at the end. So some of these guys like List and Brian were just total chalk, and the way my lineup worked out, I got Brown and Spahn as my next two guys, so that really catapulted me towards the top. A.E. Jones with a first place finish and just crushed this tournament overall. We'll be talking a little bit more about FanDuel Golf, but the product's really interesting, and right now a lot of the stuff's just working out where people are playing a lot of the same guys towards the back just because of the structure. So FanDuel is definitely fun in terms of having another place to play golf, but I hope they figure out some stuff with their pricing to make the current format a little bit more fun. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Definitely excited about golf and the Masters. We'll have a lot more content around that. And if there's anything you'd like to see going forward, definitely want to implement more stuff into these lineup reviews. As always, good luck to Fantasy Lab subscribers, and look to see you guys at the top of the leaderboard.